Frank, what's your message to the new government? Do you think they get the kind of rural economy at all?
No, I don't think any of them have set foot outside Kentish Town for the last 35 years. No, they're a hopeless bunch.
So would you invite Keir to your pub, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister?
No, he's banned. He's the first person to be banned. He's actually on a board in the hall. He's banned.
Why? What have you got against him?
Hello? I thought you were running a news operation.
Keir Starmer didn't just lose his cool, he detonated like a microwave burrito left in too long. And who pulled the plug? None other than Jeremy Clarkson. Yes, that Jeremy Clarkson, the man who's written off more cars than Starmer has written off policies, just dismantled him with ruthless precision. If you thought Starmer had any spine, think again. Clarkson mashed him into pure political jelly. So what exactly did Clarkson say that pushed Starmer into full red-faced meltdown mode? Stay right here, because this blow-up is messier than Boris Johnson's WhatsApp archive.
Figures very much differ from what the figures that the farmers are holding up in their banners today. Do you think those farmers have been gulled, maybe, by some tax-dodging millionaires who want them out there demonstrating like this?
Well, look, I support our farmers. I think it's very important we do so, and that's why we put a huge amount into. We put £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years, and food sustainability. It's hugely important.
Well, what's going
to farmers
on the streets? Why are they there?
Well, I think the most important thing that I can do is to engage in dialogue and be absolutely clear. For a typical case, parents wanting to pass on to their child a farm, so that's a typical case. The threshold is £3 million, and that means the vast majority, before anyone pays inheritance tax, that means the vast majority of farms will be totally unaffected by this. And it's important, I think, that I do keep restating that, because that's a very high...
A man whose charisma could be eclipsed by a damp paper towel is back in the news. Not for leading anything bold or transformative, of course, but for being politically taken apart by, of all people, Jeremy Clarkson. Yes, that same Clarkson, the one once sacked for decking a producer over a lukewarm dinner. When your public standing is flattened by a man who critiques tractors with more fire than most MPs bring to Parliament, you've truly ascended to the dizzy heights of pure political mediocrity.
Well, today, the country sent a message. And it wasn't whispered, was it? It was roared. From Doncaster to Dover, thousands of everyday Brits stood up and said, enough is enough. This was the Great British National Strike. And despite the media blackout, despite the political snobbery, it happened, didn't it? From the north to the south. In towns, the media usually can't even pinpoint on a map these days. Thousands took to the streets, not activists, not ideologues, just proud Brits who desperately want their country back. They're demanding an end to illegal immigration, net zero, inheritance tax, political attacks on our...
Clarkson's takedown wasn't precise. It was agricultural. He didn't nick or carve. He ploughed a metaphorical Land Rover straight through Starmer's painfully careful image, slammed it into reverse, left the engine idling, lit a cigar, and laughed as the stench of hypocrisy spilled out of Westminster like bargain bin cologne.
And in the next Parliament, I'd like to see the government prioritising farming. We've been asked to diversify, and when we try to do that, the local authorities tell us we can't.
Starmer's been carrying himself with all the bravery of a man awkwardly trying to cancel a gym membership. Every time he speaks, it sounds like he's scrambling to find the most politically antiseptic answer possible. It's like watching someone try to win a boxing match by politely asking their opponent to stop swinging. And the timing couldn't be worse. Just as Starmer attempts to convince the public he's not a Tory intern on a placement in opposition, Clarkson turns up and flattens him with the elegance of a bulldozer tearing through a garden show.
I'm here to support the farmers. It's that simple. So they need all the help they can get, really. If she'd have wanted to take out the likes of James Dyson and investment bankers and so on, she would have used a sniper's rifle. But she's used a blunderbuss and she's hit all this lot. It was, as I understand it, it was a very rushed last-minute decision. And I think, we all make mistakes in life, and I think it's time for them to say, you know what, we this one up a bit and back down. That's my view. So I thought if I told a bunch of people that I'd bought a farm so I could shoot pheasants, it might look bad, so I thought I'd better come up with another excuse. I said, well...
Meanwhile, the country is crying out for authenticity, bold thinking, and heaven forbid, a flicker of personality. Instead, Starmer is busy handing out beige policy leaflets like he's auditioning for Office Prime Minister, the spreadsheet cut. Then there's his legendary fence sitting. If hesitation were an Olympic sport, Starmer would be standing on the podium, awkwardly waving with a puzzled smile and a half-hearted sorry shrug. He's the sort of man who, when asked tea or coffee, commissions a focus group. And when Clarkson, a man whose version of nuance is driving a caravan off a cliff, accuses you of lacking direction, that's not a roast, that's a post-mortem.
Of course, that the agricultural industry is one of the most difficult areas to decarbonise, requiring substantial investment. On that basis, will his family farms tax help or hinder?
I'm very pleased that the budget, we put £5 billion over the next 2 years into farming and food sustainability, which is hugely important to support our farmers. He will also, no doubt, have noticed the money that's been allocated to deal with flooding, which is a constant cause of problems for farmers, and the money that's been put into dealing with the outbreak of disease, which is devastating for so many farmers.
But what really cuts isn't Clarkson's jabs, it's that they land because they're accurate. Starmer's whole game plan appears to be waiting for the Tories to self-destruct while he quietly rearranges his spreadsheets. He's angling for praise, simply for not being as dreadful as the alternative, which is basically the political version of a restaurant boasting that none of its meals have poisoned anyone lately. And that's where Clarkson's takedown hits hardest. It peeled back the curtain on just how fragile Starmer's image actually is. One bloke, one microphone, and a dose of plain common sense was enough to unravel the myth of Starmer as some grand strategic brain. Spoiler alert, he isn't. He's the chap at the poker table folding before the cards are even dealt. Every move he makes feels like a quiet appeal for approval from people who still insist Tony Blair was merely misunderstood. His version of bold reform, changing the font on a policy paper. Remember when Labour actually stood for something? Starmer seems to believe vague disapproval counts as a rallying cry. Not even passionate disapproval, just the gentle sort your nan shows when someone commits the crime of putting pineapple on pizza.
Clarkson has said, I'm surrounded by farmers and plasterers and brickies and butchers, and all I hear all day long is that there is too much immigration. He said, but if they say this out loud, or if they go on a march, they are told by the London elite they are far-right extremists or racist thugs. For the most part, he says, they're not. They're just people who know that they have to shut up when the last post is played and that a cheese rolling down a hill is funny. And he said, the fact is that 4 million people voted for reform. And he said, and more than that voted for Brexit. And Keir Starmer is upsetting them by labelling them as modern-day Hitlers. And he says, I therefore suggest that both he and his friends at the BBC calm down the rhetoric, or we could be heading for some serious trouble. And he's absolutely...
Meanwhile, Clarkson is over there firing off jokes, landing sharp blows and somehow emerging as the voice of reason in this political circus. Yes, Clarkson, the man who once thought crossing the channel in a Nissan pickup was a solid plan, now sounds more grounded than the bloke who wants to run the country. Welcome to the Upside Down. And don't even get me started on Starmer's so-called economic vision, or rather, his economic mist. Watching him explain policy is like listening to someone recount a half-remembered dream, hazy, abstract, and guaranteed to make your eyelids droop. Clarkson skewered it by suggesting even cows show better judgment when managing resources. And honestly, the cows walked away from that comparison looking like Nobel laureates. The moment was almost poetic, perfectly capturing what's wrong with Starmer's entire approach. He treats politics like a courtroom, forever pleading his case to some imaginary neutral judge who might one day nod politely and say, well done, you were technically correct. Meanwhile, the public is shouting at the top of its lungs, can we please get someone who actually believes in something?
Are you here, Mr. Clarkson?
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being... Yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
Right. So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic. Oh, yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it.
Clarkson, by contrast, didn't tiptoe in. He came out swinging, not because he fancies himself as Prime Minister, heaven help us, but because he spotted a vacuum of conviction and filled it with the one thing Starmer can't manufacture: confidence. Say what you like about Clarkson, but at least he never pretends to be anyone other than himself. Starmer, on the other hand, isn't just practicing political triangulation, he's contorted himself into a permanent game of political twister, forever stretching for left-hand blue while keeping his head rigidly planted in the centre. The real tragic farce is that this was meant to be Starmer's defining moment. The Conservatives are collapsing faster than a bargain bin candle in a sauna. Boris is gone. Sunak's approval ratings are being dug up by future archaeologists. And yet Starmer still can't break through. Clarkson didn't merely point this out, he blew it up with all the subtlety of a Top Gear explosion. And people laughed, not because it was nasty, but because it rang true.
She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government? I'm going to finish, if I may, with a message to the government. I do. Not a shouty one, it's this. For the sake of everybody here, and for all the farmers who are stuck at home today, paralysed by a fog of despair over what's been foisted upon them, I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake. That's the big thing to do, admit it, and back down.
You know things are dire when farmers with more tractors than Twitter followers carry more clout than the leader of the opposition. Clarkson even joked the countryside would elect a badger before Starmer, and nobody argued. At this stage, Labour's best strategy might be photoshopping Jeremy Corbyn out of the archives and pretending Starmer emerged fully formed from a think tank, like Athena springing from Blair's forehead, and the visuals were merciless. Clarkson delivered every line in a leather jacket, smirking with the self-satisfied air of a man who's been thrown out of classier venues than Westminster. Starmer's response? A press conference with all the excitement of a lifeless PowerPoint slide. It was like watching a dial-up modem desperately trying to download charisma. Even his supporters are running out of breath. You can only defend someone for not being awful for so long before it starts to sound like a hostage video. The Labour base isn't asking for a saviour, they just want someone who can throw a punch. And right now, Starmer couldn't land one on a sponge in zero gravity.
96% figure.
Well, you've got 96%.
Yeah.
Well, the same place that Rachel Reeves does, from the middle of her head.
Right.
From the Sixth Form Debating Society that she was no doubt a member of.
Okay.
Which formed her opinions and yours.
I am not expressing opinions. I'm literally asking you questions. You know that, Mr. Clarkson.
Right.
So, what is your message to this government?
Please back down. Please.
And get the money from where?
Well, they've got 40 billion.
It's not that he doesn't care. Starmer probably obsesses over metrics, polls, and endless political triangulation. But leadership isn't about engineering the blandest, least offensive position in a lab. It's about standing for something, even if Clarkson decides to roast you in the process. And if you're going to get roasted, do it with some dignity, not whatever soggy excuse he tried to pass off. The reality is, Starmer getting torn apart by Clarkson wasn't just funny, it was illuminating. It reminded everyone how allergic he is to authenticity. Now he's back to what he does best, awkwardly backpedaling, issuing vague statements of disapproval, and hoping no one notices that Clarkson accomplished in 5 minutes what Labour's communications team hasn't managed in 5 years. It highlights just how catastrophically uninspiring he really is. The issue isn't that Starmer is actively terrible, it's that he's terminally beige. Every time he speaks, you can almost hear the static hum, like tuning into a channel showing PowerPoint's slides narrated by a bored tax consultant.
Everything we're doing it is for our kids. It's their future, and everything is just going against it. This inheritance tax it's ridiculous. It's the final straw.
I'm just so emotional. Why do we as farmers have to do this? We shouldn't,
This government needs to realise it's never been hungry since World War II. They're going to be hungry. Because if they keep putting tax on the farmers, it's going to have a massive impact.